Good morning. I have a question for you. Do you believe the customer is always right? Today, we're going to find out if this myth is true. Stick around. I'll be back with Dominic Stoddard, who is going to give us insight to our rights and responsibilities as customers in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be right back.
Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, things changed, but things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card, but only had a debit card.
Good morning, and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us on Facebook, I'll wait for you for a second. Just click that follow button. Thank you so much. And follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing knowing and understanding your customer rights and responsibilities in Trinidad and Tobago, which is such a timely matter. I think this show today is more for my knowledge than you, because I have so many questions for our guest, who is Dominic Stoddard, the Financial Services Ombudsman of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I have questions about that word, and I'm probably going to stumble on that word multiple times, but that's okay. We have the guest for it. He is the Financial Services Ombudsman of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. So literally, we're coming out to the goat's mouth. He's also the head of the National Financial Literacy Program and chairman of the National Financial Education Committee, responsible for the development and execution of the National Financial Education Strategy. He's a trained mediator and a financial advisor certified by the Institute of Banking and Finance of Trinidad and Tobago, and he holds a BSc in economics from the University of the West Indies and an MSc in development statistics from Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. He's also, I don't know where he gets any time, but he's also pursuing an MBA in business intelligence and data analytics at the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. And somewhere in between all of that, he's an avid viewer of the hit crime thriller series, The Blacklist. So we have so much to unpack with Dominic today. So let's just welcome Dominic. How are you this morning?
I am very well, thank you. Welcome to you and all your listeners and viewers.
Awesome. So we're going to get right to it, because I have so many questions to ask, and I can assure you, based on previous sessions, we're going to have a few people rolling into the comment section and asking us questions as well. So for those who don't know what it is, aka me, what is an ombudsman? Let's start from the ground up.
Okay. The word ombudsman is a Nordic word. Somewhere in the Scandinavian countries, when they started to formalize their government systems and interact with individuals and citizens as service providers, there were problems being encountered along the way where individuals would have felt that they were unfairly treated. So the word ombuds or ombudsman really means, at its core, roughly translated as your representative, someone who will stand in on your behalf to go up against large agencies which you believe you don't have the power to interact with in an equally dynamic way.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it because sometimes when you Google search something, you don't necessarily read it as it should. That is such a good place for us to start. Shout out to Desiree. She is one of our avid viewers, and she is definitely a fan of Blacklists, which we're going to delve into later because I feel like there's some dynamic with human behavior with that show. So when it comes to rights, because there is this idea of what is the responsibility of a consumer versus the actual business, because the roles and the rights of a responsibility of a customer, where do we find that information? Where do we go to say, okay, this is my right as someone who is a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and is paying taxes and walked into a store? What are my rights? Where do we begin with that?
Well, customers have a wide array of rights. So, for example, if you go into a business place to make a purchase or whatever, you have the right to a safe and secure environment. You don't want to slip on a wet floor without being adequately guided or notified. You don't want to be in harm's way. That's a right. You also have what I think are the two fundamental rights that we probably want to discuss today is the right of choice and the right to truthful, unbiased information to inform your choice. So, by having the right of choice, it means wherever you go to purchase a product or a service, whether you go into a bank, whether you go into a retail establishment, a roadside vegetable stall, wherever, you always have the right of choice as a customer. And that choice means if you don't like what is being on offer, either the quality, the price, the packaging, the accompanying service, whatever it is that you are not comfortable with, no one is forcing you to make that purchase. You have the right to go elsewhere. So that's your right of choice, first and most fundamental. And the second right that I think is important among all the other rights that consumers have is the right to truthful, unbiased information. If someone were to be selling you something and explaining to you or providing you with information that says this product does X or is X, when in truth and in fact the product is Y, doesn't do X but does P, Q, and R, you've basically misled the consumer. So the right to truthful information, unbiased information is important in customers making appropriate choices, be they financial or otherwise.
I like that approach because a lot of times, I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up with thinking if I go pick up something in locally, I heard that's it, my transaction is done. Whereas if I go away, especially United States of America, I feel as though the information is more free in terms of, okay, I have the option to return this for the next 30 days. I don't get the same feeling in Trinidad and Tobago. Why do you think that is?
I think it may be cultural. So, for example, many people make purchases, and somewhere at the bottom of your receipt, or maybe at the back of it, it says that you have the right to return within 30 days, but you have to, your product has to be accompanied by this receipt. Or in some cases, they actually tell you, specifically for electronics, that if your warranty is 30 days, but you must keep the packaging. So when you go home, you unpack very neatly to make sure that you don't destroy and rip and dispose of the packaging in case there's a problem. And then sometimes people don't even ask if they have a warranty, like if something should go bad with it. You just assume that you will never get good service and you just take your receipt, hand over your money, you take the product and you walk away. Now, one or two individuals might have the courage, the persistence, and determination to say, no, this is unfair. I paid for something. It was not what it promised to be. What are the legitimate expectations? And I want either my money back or credit note. Because some establishments tell you upfront, we do not refund cash. If you have a problem, we may be able to provide you with a credit note so you can take something else. Now, whether the total legality of that is outside of my scope, there's a consumer affairs division. But once you are informed of some of these things up front, you have legitimate expectations. Now you know that if for any reason you have to change, you're going to get a credit note. They're not going to give you back any money.
There's so much to unpack there, and I want to address the consumer affairs because I really want to know what's the difference between the consumer affairs conversation and the ombudsman conversation. How is that different?
There's a lot in common, but the ombudsman's scope of influence is very specific. I operate within the confines of those agencies that are supervised by the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. Those institutions are commercial bank, trust and mortgage finance companies, finance houses and merchant banks, and insurance companies. Any one of the institutions that require a central bank license to operate, there is where I'm able to make interventions after the appropriate steps have been taken by a customer who feels dissatisfied. Now, that's very specific. The Consumer Affairs Division has broad scope and latitude with respect to purchasing and transaction and so on. So I'm mostly confined into the financial sector.
So let's talk about that because in introducing you, we spoke about your role as the financial services ombudsman. What does that entail? What's your role there?
My role is to receive complaints from customers who are not satisfied with their financial service providers. And I'm talking specifically about those licensed by the central bank, okay? Your commercial bank, trust and mortgage, and finance house, or your insurance company, for example. Each institution is required to have an internal complaints process. So you go to the institution to do a transaction, and for whatever reason, things go awry and you are not satisfied. Your first the first step required of you is to complain at the bank or branch in which you conducted the transaction. And it's always preferable to do so in writing. If you're not satisfied with the bank or branch and you wish to access the institution's internal complaints process, it's usually located at the head office. Now, I'm not sure how relevant that is anymore because a lot of us are doing things by email. But even if you email a customer care email address or whoever addresses these things for customers, you are required to have proper details and records so that you can provide any kind of documentation to say, I did provide copies of this, I was asked to sign this, I was asked to pay this, I did all of that, and still I didn't get what I was bargaining for. And if that the institution is unable to provide you with a satisfactory response within 2 months' time, you come to the office of the Financial Services Ombudsman located on the first floor of the central bank's building, and you lodge a formal complaint. Otherwise, you can go online at our website at ofso.org.tt, and you will access a formal, a short form to lodge a complaint so we know that you have an issue. All right, so you could approach us online or you can come in person, but you must give the institution sufficient time to really address the complaint that you lodged.
Wow. So that is a lot of information that I had no idea. And I'm sure our viewers would feel the same way because I was not aware that this website exists. And based on what you're saying, we have to make sure and have a trail, a paper trail, as well as giving it some time because you have to showcase that you've made an effort, you've made an attempt to get this problem solved, but it's not being solved. So now it comes to you. Is that the case?
Yes, but that time lapses for two reasons. One is you would have interacted with them and built up a certain amount of correspondence. They would have asked you for things and you would have provided. So that may take, maybe a few days, a few weeks, what have you. But also, depending on the nature of the complaint. So, for example, if you have let's say an identity theft situation, whereas your credit card is compromised and people may be doing transactions using your information, you have to give the institution enough time to do a proper investigation. And a proper investigation could sometimes take 6 weeks, because you wouldn't be the only complaint in the queue. And now that time needs to be reduced as far as possible now that we're in digital age. But more than that, sometimes they actually have sophisticated machine learning models that they run against data for your history, your data history, and also against the history other people's data to make a reasonably accurate determination as to whether you were really a victim of financial fraud or whether you are in fact attempting to do something that mightn't really be legal, or a kind of scam or so.
Okay, those are definitely some great points. And, I have so many more questions. But before we get to it, we have a short break and we'll be right back to really delve into rights and responsibilities of consumers in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us today to Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries. Today is so interesting. I have so much to learn, and so do you. So if you're joining us from LinkedIn, don't forget to smash that follow button and get notified every time we go live, because I don't know about you, I want to get better at managing my money, and I hope you do as well. So today we are discussing knowing and understanding your customer rights and responsibilities in Trinidad and Tobago with Dominic Stoddard. He's the Financial Services Ombudsman of Trinidad and Tobago, which is a role that's under central bank. And it's interesting because this is the most I've ever said the word ombudsman, because it's not even in my general conversation. So, just for a backdrop for you, Dominic, when somebody asks you what you do and you tell them, what is usually the response?
Well, it varies widely. Sometimes, because the word is not one that you hear commonly used, they may think that the job is also glamorous, but they don't realize that many times when someone approaches the ombudsman's office, whether the financial services ombudsman or the government ombudsman, it's because they've gone through a lengthy ordeal with something that is not pleasant and they're not satisfied. So by the time they come to your office, they're frustrated to their wits' end. So they're not always the most pleasant people to interact with. That's the first thing. But also, I have the privilege and honor to report some very satisfactory outcomes where you're able to relate to people. Well, listen, we have had cases like these before, and we had a very successful outcome. It will take about approximately this amount of time, but we are likely to, once the facts provided, what they need to be, we are also able to bring a smile on many people's faces. So it varies. There's a wide continuum from the frustrated and fed up to people who are really satisfied with the kind of work that we're doing.
I'm also curious to understand, because you mentioned earlier, and guys, everything we mentioned in terms of the websites are in the comment section, so just check that out. Don't worry, you don't have to type it in. You just click and it goes through it. But what is the general age of people who come to you? Because I don't know, from within my age group and maybe my sister much younger, that's not even part of our sort of, okay, I go buy something, it doesn't work out, I'll just go sell it on Facebook or something like that. We don't necessarily talk about going and complaining. So would you say that the majority of people who submit these requests are in the older side of the generation?
Um, if we're speaking majority, probably yes. I don't have a firm statistic, but I would say like around the 30s and so, people tend to be a little more particular about money and financial transactions. And if they go to like a bank or insurance company to do something while waiting in line or whatever, they may have taken up one of our brochures at the counters, because we have brochures at all counters. And also, we are actually seeing a lot of younger people these days. So the median age is going down. And that's because we've established social media platforms. We have an IG page, we have a Facebook page. So, we're always posting on Facebook and so on. So people on the social media platforms who tend to be younger are now interacting with our information and saying, I did not know this, I did not know this. But um, generally it tended to be just 30 and up, but that age is falling.
That's a great point, Dominic. When you speak about as you get older, you get more aware of money. So, for instance, for me, seeing the grays that are popping up, my mortality is more in my face, and this idea of I spent money and I want to be able to know exactly that I get quality fit, versus when you're younger, you're just kind of carefree, like whatever happens, happens. That's such an interesting point. And from the customer's perspective, what are some of the challenges being faced by that individual? Because if you don't understand your rights and responsibilities, what are some of the pitfalls that we fall into?
Um, I just wanted to make mention about that age thing and people's concern with their money, and then I'll speak to the traditional pitfalls. We all conform in general to something called the life cycle income hypothesis, where in your 90, in like late teens, early 20s, that's not the highest point of your earnings. And at entry level, you may not be making as much money as you would like, but then you don't have as much responsibilities. You may not yet have kids, or you may not yet have a mortgage or start paying for a car or any of those things. So you tend generally to really be a little freer with money. By the time you cross that, let's say 24 approaching 30, and you really start to think about acquiring a home, acquiring property to build a home, working out contractors and these kinds of responsibilities, it puts you in a different mindset with money. And as you get older, within the 40s or thereabout, and sometimes it starts earlier, but generally it's around 40, 45, and so on, you start to think about your retirement. Now, you should really be thinking about your retirement way early and start dealing with things like insurances and that kind of thing. But generally, that's the trend we've observed. And you have to, you're thinking a different way about money now. You're thinking about setting up a nest egg, setting up for passive income, so that when you're not earning a wage employment anymore and you're living on a pension, you already have one or two income generating assets set up that will supplement your income. So there are different phases along that life cycle income, you know, trajectory, where you really change your attitude to money as you mature. Now, your original question about rights. Many people, they think about consumer rights, but to a large extent it overlaps heavily with the responsibilities of a consumer, whether it be a financial or general consumer. You have a responsibility to understand firstly, what your true needs are. You may go to a bank to open an account, or you may be doing your research online, but you have to be clear in your mind what's the purpose of this account. And once you clarify what your needs are, you're better able to decide on which product suits you best. The second responsibility you have is to understand what is being offered to you. Because you may go and you may speak to someone and they are custom marketing things generally. They say, well, no, you may not need a premium account. You just need a basic saving. Understand what you're signing up for. Uh, Even your credit card and so on. Remember, we spoke about customers having choice and the ability to shop around. Well, it's the same thing. You go to one institution and these are the terms. You go to another institution, they have different terms. Some of them at the margin, they try a little product differentiation. But what it's all about is customers understanding the different products that are on offer and choosing wisely, making responsible financial decisions about how they spend, how they save, whether they budget, what they're preparing for, whether they understand and are able to compare between some of these products. That's the most empowering thing that an individual can do for themselves in building a history of responsible financial behavior. And our National Financial Literacy Program, in fact, deals with the knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, and the behaviors that you need in order to make prudent financial decisions so that over time you can enjoy the quality of life that you would like to.
I could see the connection between what you mentioned earlier about the life cycle of money, in specific age groups, and then looking at your responsibility as a consumer because, not everybody has the same upbringing. Not everybody, growing up, from the time I get $5, I ran to the store to get Bigfoot because I needed, the money was like a burning sensation. I had to go get that. But I never, I was shamed into that act. I wasn't actually sat down and explained to, hey, this is what you need to do in order to get to this position versus, well, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. All you're doing is spending money. So it's the idea of financial literacy. Like, what does that even mean? Because a lot of us don't have that backdrop of sitting down with somebody and being informed of it. And then this program you're talking about, Central Bank, could you share some insight on that?
Sure. The program website is nflp.org.tt. If you go to the Central Bank website, you'll get a link to it. Or if you Google National Financial Literacy Program, you should get us coming up there. We have a lot of resources on the website that provides information for young people, for potential homeowners, for people planning for retirement, for people who want to understand budgeting, saving, investing, looking at a financial calculator, making choices between mortgages, just a variety of useful resources and some videos that helps provide basic financial literacy information for anyone who is interested. And all our programs and offerings are free of charge. The second thing is that there's a part on our website where you could click request a session. And if you could get 25 or 30 people together, we will provide you with a skilled financial literacy tutor to take you through either one or two sessions, or maybe if you want to discuss a series of sessions. Again, all free of charge. Once you follow the instructions about requesting a session from us, what we do is we have one of our officers contact you to do a needs assessment. We want to make sure that we understand what your needs are, because some people have problems with budgeting and saving. Some, they're good at budgeting and saving, but they don't really understand and they probably are afraid of investing. We want to help individuals to develop just what I said before, the knowledge, the skill, the behaviors, and the attitudes to manage money properly. And those things give you one other thing: confidence to ask the correct questions of your financial service providers in order to ensure that you get the best deals or you choose the most appropriate products for yourselves. So we also would have been doing a lot of expositions and fairs. What we've essentially done is we've divided the population into segments. So we have primary and secondary school children constituting one segment. We have faith-based organizations. We have government and related agencies. We have at-risk youths. So we have a number of different agencies that we run continuous programs with. And we also entertain requests from the general public. You have a church group, you have a sports club, you have anything where people interact with money and you want us to do a session, we would have ordinarily gone to you to do it, community centers, what have you. But now we do all of our sessions virtually online and we send you the link. You don't have to worry about that. You just clarify your needs, what your needs are.
Well, Desiree just commented how I felt. What? I didn't know this was an option. And I am already, after this live session, I'm going to ask you, we need to sort that out. And if you're watching this, maybe on the replay, just check, go in the comments and sign up to our BATT.org. I think we'll have the link there and we'll send it to you directly because we'll get that link because that's such an important that, and it's free. I am like making notes because I think one of the most I guess for me in the corporate space, the small business owner never gets that attention. So I am booking. FYI, it's said I am booking. Right.
In fact, we've only just concluded a 8-session series which ran for over a period of 2 weeks, just in this month of November. It started on the 2nd, the 3rd. And the reason why we ran that small business session, having brought it up, is that we felt that for a very long time in Trinidad and Tobago, there was a mindset that young people needed to go to school and study well to come out to get a job. Come out to get a job to work for somebody. How is it that many more of us aren't oriented towards starting a business, working for ourselves, and perhaps providing employment for maybe other people? And it's because we were, to a large extent, socialized in that way. Now, you're saying, as a young person, no one really sat you down about money and financial matters. Financial literacy is a life skill. It doesn't come by automatically. It comes from a certain series of consistent examples by parents to children. So when you get your $100 or $200 from your grandparents for your birthday, of course you can spend one when you go to the mall, but you have this steady practice that you have to save one. You have to put it, wherever you want to save it, at home or in a financial institution. And over time, just helping children with that example. Or sometimes we think children are too young to be involved in financial discussions. And to get them ready and prepared as early as possible in life, you need to take them to the supermarket with you and let them see that you're watching different products and you're comparing prices and you're looking at the size and you're thinking about what might waste if you buy a large versus a small, or what is more economical to buy in a pack of 6 or a dozen versus 1 or 2 and that kind of thing. It's never too early to get children involved in financial matters.
Well, Dominic, you just made us into a therapy session because if you were around when I was a child, I wouldn't feel so guilty at this point. And Desiree agrees because hers was Bourbon, mine was Bigfoot. And we're told all these things we're supposed to do, but at the end of the day, as you just said, being a life skill and having someone to sit down and teach you is so important. I have so many more questions for you, but we're gonna go on a break, right? So I have so many questions, but we'll be right back.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
And welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. This is Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to a new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from YouTube, go smash that subscribe button because you're not going to get these conversations anywhere else. Trust me, I've looked, it's not there. So if you want to learn how to manage your money, go and follow us on YouTube. Okay. All right, great. So today we're discussing knowing and understanding your consumer rights and responsibilities in Trinidad and Tobago with Dominic Stoddard. He is the Financial Services Ombudsman of Trinidad and Tobago, and he has a wealth of knowledge. If you've missed the last 30 minutes, don't worry. Once we have gone live and we've stop this, it actually is a recording, so you could go and press replay. And this may be something you have to share with people because a lot of times we don't realize that we need this advice around financial literacy until it's too late. So let's bring in Dominic and have this conversation around inclusion and literacy, because you mentioned earlier that there are these free I guess events and learning processes as long as you have 20 plus people, which I understand. And within those groups are at risk. And a lot of times we have this perception that all you need to do is work hard and you'll get to where you need to go. But I really want to understand the difference between financial inclusion and literacy. If you could educate us on that.
All right. Financial literacy is possessing the skill to make appropriate financial choices. So you have knowledge of things like budgeting, saving, investing, debt management, risk protection, and those kinds of things. But not just knowing them, but you actually have the skill that is required to apply some of these things. All right. So financial literacy, which derives from financial education, really is about having the skill to do certain things financially, the knowledge and the skills. Financial inclusion, on the other hand, is having the knowledge of and making actual use of financial products and services in a sustainable way. A lot of people, for example, see themselves as excluded from the financial system because they may be required to have two forms of ID, and because they had only one, they were unable to open a savings account. Or they have an account, they have a small business, but they find it very difficult to access loan facilities that will help their business grow and develop. And many times it's because they may not fully understand things like proper record keeping and cash flow management and that kind of thing. But a financially included person, or financial inclusion, really refers to access to and use of financial products and services. So you're excluded if you do not have access, whether it is for an account of a particular type or insurance policy of a particular type, or able to make use of a credit card of a particular type. It is access to these products and services and actually making use of, because some people, they may have access to, and again, they may have had a bad experience and they decided, I don't want to do insurance anymore. These people, they don't like to pay. Or they may say, the banks, you hear this all the time, that the banks applying so many fees, they left thousands of dollars there, and when they check back however many months or whatever after they saw that the money went down and down and down, and they don't understand some basic things. For example, I hold no brief for banks, but I just want to explain to the listeners and the public at large. When you pay how much ever for account maintenance fees at a bank, you're not paying the bank to keep your money. What you're paying the bank for is the entire infrastructure of support that surrounds your account. So you can check on your phone, check your balance. You can go online and check your balance. You could get text messages when money's hit your account. You could transfer account from one person to another person, either within your bank or in a next bank. You can make online payments of bills. You can do so many things. Those things, and also your money needs to be secure. It must be secured in a way that nobody must be able to come and, just say, interfere with it. So, to provide you with the security, the protection, to provide you with all the supporting services where you can constantly check and get updated account balance. You can see when checks and transfers go outward or hit your account inbound. These things cost money. So it's not like you're paying a bank to keep your money and that kind of thing. And the other thing is banks report profits from time to time, quarterly, biannually, wholly, and what have you. And a lot of people might say, oh my goodness, all of this money they're making, almost $1 billion or something like that. If you simply take the profit, and I'm not saying that they're not profitable, but I'm just saying, if you take the profit and you divide it by the capital that the bank has invested, and you scale it in reference to that, what you were thinking before about the amount that they're making, you get a totally different and far more reasonable picture. And I will also hasten to add that it would be far worse for a lot, if not all of us, if we had a set of weak banks in the country where an institution was going under every so often, and then because of interconnectedness, they're bringing down others with them, and the financial system is unstable and unsecure. But it's not always easy to have this conversation with the public, because what they're seeing and their interpretation sometimes is far different from reality, but they won't get that information anywhere. And they also have very emotive feelings that if they were to take a dispassionate look at some things, they'll come with different very conclusions.
Wow, I feel like I'm in a masterclass and I should be paying for this information. That's such an awesome outlook, and I definitely agree with this complaint around the fees attached to banks. I never understood why people complain about it, because like we pay, and I say we, like a lot of us pay for apps on stores, and they pull $5-6 every month out of your account for storage, because all these different things are being added to not just your particular account, but you're looking at it as a whole and all these different elements. We had a previous guest talk about security and all the things that they have to put in place at a specific bank. And we don't see the back end of it. It's not like, you go into a store and you see the shoe, you put it on and you walk away with it. There's a lot of things that we don't see. So I definitely agree with the the emotional side, because once somebody gets emotional, you can't have a conversation with them. What's the point? It's such an interesting perspective that I never even thought about.
Yes, and probably our institutions need to do better to explain these things to the general public, because in many things, I think perhaps it's cultural. In many things, you think we as the public are being ripped off. We're not getting this, that's a very emotive thing. So sometimes even when you get what you're justly entitled to, somehow you feel that you probably deserved a little more because they're making so much money off of me. Stuff like that. In my earlier years, I wrote an essay on insurance without properly understanding insurance, and even as a young adult, I would say, but look at how much we pay insurance for the last 5 years and we never make a claim. Why you can't get this? You paid over the last 5 years, but in each of those years, when you paid your premium, what you got was protection for that year. So it wasn't just paying them for nothing. What you were doing, you were paying for 12 calendar months of coverage. So they gave you what you paid for. If you did get in an accident, you might very well have been able to make a claim. Whether you're satisfied with it is another problem, another issue, but that's what you, and a lot of people still do not make that connection, or they're induced in one way or the other to take out a restrictive insurance policy that basically says only you as the owner of this vehicle is entitled to drive, and there's no protection provided for others who may want use of the vehicle. And it was fine with you when you took the policy because you paid perhaps a very competitive rate, you know. It was nice then. You give somebody a vehicle to take to the mechanic or to take to wash or whatever, and an accident happens, and somehow or the other, the customer just forgot that he paid for a restrictive policy. And even though the other party in the accident was wrong, they want to get their insurance company involved. And what we're forced to explain to them on many occasions is that you've basically breached the terms of your policy when you had another driver use your vehicle, and therefore you are unable to get the company to claim or to, you know. Another thing is we see it a lot with the commercial banks. People will use um, links machines and use the cards and so forth, and you might see an aunt or grandmother giving a niece or nephew a card and saying, go to the bank and take out X amount of money for me. Now, basically, when you do that, you have breached the terms of your account agreement. If you look at the back of the agreement that you signed up when you opened the account, you were supposed to keep your PIN private. You were not supposed to disclose that to anyone else. And if someday later down, sometime after, you found money's missing for your account and you go to the institution and you're attempting to make a claim, you could very well find yourself encountering difficulty because every account has terms that the banks will honor, but there are also things that you have to honor, and revealing your PIN is not one of them. And these are just some simple, basic things that people don't understand, and they get very frustrated when the reality hits them. And I just hope that more of our financial literacy sessions will explain some of these things and that individuals will understand not just their rights, but their responsibilities.
Yeah, I really feel this session is making me more my eyes open to what my responsibility is. And I too, gonna be honest and transparent, complain about, the idea of the monthly payment coming out from the banks. But I had the experience of opening a bank account in New York, and let me tell you, there is absolutely no interest in nothing. New York's interest rate is insane. The process and the fees are insane, and I know you're in, the US dollars, but in comparison, I was just like, you know what, guys, come back to Trinidad, just take my money. It's fine. It's fine. It's not, it's not as much as New York. Continue taking my money. It's okay. You really don't understand until you experience different options, what exactly is happening. And I think you did a great job of explaining what those fees are for as well.
Yes, and we have a lot of very specialized facilitators. Like when people make an inbound request for the services of the National Financial Literacy Program, we actually have people who specialize in debt management. Sometimes people over time find themselves in debt and they can't see their way out of it or so. We have experts in that. We also have people who specialize in home ownership. We've recently beefed up our capacity to do sessions on entrepreneurship because we understand that the economy has been in several years of decline. And because of that, some people, the pandemic, will be either working reduced hours or not working at all. But many times, these people have skills that they haven't yet put to proper use. And what we're trying to do is to shift the mindset from looking for a job, writing a resume, and start to now consider, what are my available skills and which of them can I monetize? And what do I need to do to start? And where do I go for the information on how to register my business? And how do I plan for my cash flow management? And how do I price my products for profitability and competitiveness? Who is my strategic competition? Things like that. Where do I access funding? What do I require in order to have proper record keeping to access some of these services? These are the kinds of things as we are trying to work with the public at large and offer these services absolutely free. And we encourage anyone hearing about it to come and make full use of these services.
I that's awesome. And I just want to shout out to Kevin, because we earlier we were discussing about the options, and your role and responsibility as a consumer is to go out and look for the information. And Kevin said, I think banks also post on their website the list of their savings accounts and the various fees, which I can assure you it is there, it is visible. And just take a couple minutes out of your time, maybe the same time you spend scrolling on Instagram, to just go figure it out, because it's your responsibility as a consumer to understand the information out there. So we're gonna go on a quick break, and when we come back, we want to really discuss, because it's challenging for a lot of folks out there to think about money at this time, because you're just surviving. So we want to get some insight from Dominic, and maybe some tips that we could all learn on coming on the other side of whatever post COVID is going to look like. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us today. Straight Off the Bat is a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to a new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're talking about knowing and understanding your customer rights and responsibilities in Trinidad and Tobago with Dominic Stoddard. And this is the only time I've used the word ombudsman. And I've said it so many times over the last couple of, over the last hour. I'm just like, okay, now I understand what it means. So Dominic is the Financial Services Ombudsman of Trinidad and Tobago, and he works at Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. And we are going to ask him some questions about the challenges that we're facing as customers in Trinidad and Tobago. What do we need to do? Because there's so many options out there. Where do we start? And it comes with financial literacy. So, Dominic, you mentioned earlier about the opportunity to be educated with the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. With the if you have 20 plus people, you can come and teach what you need to do. You also mentioned debt, learning about that, which is something I wish I had as a younger person, because you get your first credit card and you're like, this is money, but it's actually not your money. So if you don't have 20 plus people and you still want to learn, what do you do?
I think you have to introspect. I think you should actually try to use the services and get proper advice from an unbiased source, such as our program. But if you're unable to, start off with some basic thing, personal financial discipline. And I'll just give you two tips. One is oftentimes we go to places, stores, supermarkets, what have you, and we just buy whatever we need because at the point in time you have the available cash to buy it. Sometimes you're not even looking at what your total coming up to unless it's a significant amount. But small amounts, many occasions, they add up to big amounts. So what we find, a lot of people have a vague idea in their head about how much money they'll save and how much they'll spend and how, but you have to be very specific about budgeting. You set a limit on what you will spend during any given month. And if you could hold on that with a little bit of a contingency, having that financial discipline to do your budget helps you to do something else, which is to save, because you've started out knowing how much you're going to spend and how much you're going to save, and you're going to do your best to stick to that as far as possible. Some people will say, but I'm not even making enough money to save, I'm not making enough money to get by. And a lot of times it's because of the lack of discipline. And the second point that a lot of us don't think about is wastage, household wastage. You buy a lot of things that you think you might need, but you do not actually need. And they sometimes stay around so long, especially like food items. I don't know how it happens. You meet the expiry date and it's no longer good. You just have to throw that out. Or you buy something one day, you buy whatever. You just bought more than you actually needed at the time. And then a lot of it is going to be thrown away. And the third thing in that wastage is a lot of us accumulate stuff because they sell us all kinds of gadgets and marketing. You have a good proper charger for your cell phone, but you don't want to use your charger anymore. You want to rest it on one of the charging bays. The two items have the same basic function, but they're priced differently. Why do you want one? Just because it's a more updated way of charging your phone? The phones, how often do you really need to update? Basic things like that. So the first is, if you're not seeking help, introspect and start off by budgeting, start off by saving, start off by minimizing wastage, start off by having the discipline to not acquire some things that we think we need that we don't actually do. So we're properly distinguishing between wants and needs. And the third thing is not acquiring bad debt. Bad debt is debt for consumer items where it generates no real income. Now, the acquisition of a motor vehicle in times where you need personal safety for you and those you love might justify acquisition. All right. So, I'm not drawing a hard and fast line, but I'm saying some people incur debt for things like studies, for starting small business, for acquisition of a mortgage, for, things that in general will either grow in value over time or it will generate some kind of income, supplemental income, passive or otherwise, that will help them. So you incur that to purchase shares. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and the word debt, it's something that I am learning that doesn't necessarily has to be this negative thing, because it's an understanding of money. And I think, you've given me so much to think about, and it's something that we definitely should explore further. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Dominic. Kevin and Desiree, all up in the comments agreeing as well. Desiree said she's guilty of the shoe situation, and purchasing marketing gets us all, so we just have to be aware of it. We all have our things, okay? We all have our things. So you're going to close off now. Thanks again to Dominic Stoddard for joining us today and sharing insight into knowing your customer rights and responsibilities in Trinidad and Tobago. Be sure to check out the links in the comment section and sign up to be notified when we go live. And the next live show is in celebration of International Men's Day. Join us on the 18th of November at the same time, where we're going to talk about better mental health for men and boys in Trinidad and Tobago with Dr. Oscar Noel Ocho. As always, be sure to like and follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss a single live show. And thank you for joining us today. See you soon. Bye.